Hey, RetconRaider here. Today's video is dedicated to Ash. Thanks for your support, Ash. That said, let's get started. Much as we had suspected, the sudden resurgence of undead in the old family crypts had indeed been the work of a foul necromancer. Perhaps a partner or apprentice to the one we had previously slain, or perhaps even the same necromancer, somehow raised from the dead by the foul magics that they had somehow mastered. Although they were fragmented, my uncle's notes did make passing reference to similar dark occultists that he had once invited to the estate. He claimed to have slain the men, though he never offered any reason as to why. I'd like to imagine that his intentions were altruistic, that he had simply sought to rid the world of such obvious villains. But given what I had seen over the past year, I did have my doubts. Regardless, whatever that thing had been, Dame Adriana and the others had made short work of it. This time, they had burned the body and scattered the ashes, just as a precaution. The undead were still thick in the deeper catacombs, but with any luck, their numbers would soon begin to dwindle. Meanwhile, with the foreboding cloud of the Crimson Curse finally lifted from our quaint little hamlet, life had returned to some grim parody of normalcy. No longer overwhelmed by the sheer number of afflicted, the Vestal Sisters were finally able to return their attention to the physical and mental well-being of our recruits, rather than desperately struggling to keep them from each other's throats. Without that constant, desperate need to slake our unnatural thirst, our resources could finally be put to much more practical use. Where once I might have been bored, spending hours plotting out trade routes and bolstering commerce, it was now a welcome change of pace. I realized now that the Crimson Curse had forced the hamlet into a state of stagnation. But now, finally free of that curse, the hamlet might actually see some growth again. Of course, even in the best of times, there were always grim reminders of the bloody work that was still yet to be done. With increased traffic came a new influx of visitors, and among them strode a mysterious new arrival. A sickly soothsayer, but one who carried himself with a warrior's resolve. He introduced himself as Mason Storm, once a noble crusader, until an unfortunate encounter with the unknown had left its indelible mark upon both his body and mind. Now, he was but an echo of his former self, festooned with the tattered remnants of faith, as he was literally being eaten alive by some dark passenger that had taken residence within his very soul. Still, despite his chronic and incurable condition, he claimed that this parasite also bestowed upon him unnatural visions of the future. He knew not why, but those visions had now led him here, to our curious little corner of the world. It was utter madness, of course, but no more or less mad than anything else we had encountered over these past several months. Indeed, given what we had experienced, it would have been folly to simply dismiss his warnings out of hand. Instead, I reluctantly agreed to make room for him in our barracks, at least temporarily, and only until I could ascertain the veracity of his outlandish claims. In the meantime, my scouts continued to flood my office with stack after stack of reports. The undead had been contained, but we could not say the same for the ravenous pigmen or inscrutable fishmen. And there was word of travelers disappearing along the dark and winding roads surrounding the hamlet. We would need to prepare ourselves, not just for the obvious threats, but also for the terrors that lurked just outside our field of view. Provisions were procured, expeditions dispatched. It was the beginning of our second year on the estate, and yet our work here had just barely begun.
These salt-soaked caverns are teeming with pelagic nightmares. They must be flushed out.
Welcome back to Darkest Dungeon. I'll admit, I was originally planning to do a boss run today, but then I realized that almost half our roster is grossly underleveled. We've got no shortage of perfectly viable recruits, we just don't send a lot of them out into the field. So they sit there, stagnating at level 3 or lower, which makes it even less likely that I'll use them over time. With that in mind, today I thought we'd take steps towards rectifying that injustice, giving some of our less frequently seen recruits a chance to shine on the battlefield. With any luck, they'll survive today's adventure, and maybe even gain a level up in the process. That said, let's meet our heroes. Crazy Henry. Juidos Varnas. Mr. Nightmare. Dakram. Alright, let's see what we've got here. Okay, that's not too bad. Just one fight in the first 2 hallways, and we've got a pretty straightforward design for the dungeon. Let's get moving. Obviously, we don't have a primary healer with us today, but I'm not really anticipating any significant trouble. Worst case scenario, we'll just bail with whatever treasure we can get our hands on. As long as we can walk out of here with at least 20,000 gold, I'll consider it a resounding success. Two more fights ahead of us. Nothing to worry about, though. Not yet, anyway.
Finding the stuff is only the first test. Now it must be carried home.
Alright, fight number 1. That's not too bad. Let's do this.
Slowly, gently. This is how a life is taken. As the fiend falls, a faint hope blossoms. Confidence surges as the enemy crumbles.
Lovely. A nice warm-up battle to get the blood pumping. Already running into space issues, though. You know what? Let's start dumping the torches. I was planning to turn this into a dark run halfway through anyway.
The match is struck. A blazing star is born.
Pass on the vampires. Ooh, what have we here? Okay, we've already seen this one. Let's at least try to make room for it. That way we'll stop running into it.
Packs laden with loot are often low on supplies.
Yeah.
Another mariner, another misfortune.
Fight number 2. Wow, brigands. Haven't seen these guys in a while. Better go for a direct kill here. Figures.
Press this advantage. Give them no quarter.
Okay, let's try this again. Now let's try this out. I've heard good things.
Great is the weapon that cuts on its own.
Oh well.
Their formation is broken. Maintain the offensive.
I suppose I really should have started stacking dodge a little earlier in the fight. Sometimes it's just really hard to resist stabbing something instead. I'm taking a bit of a risk there, but I'm assuming we'll find more food. This is the cove, after all. Fight number 3. Very nice. Okay, let's set up our defense a little earlier this time. I would like to finish off that caster, but Judas can't actually reach her. Not much chance of finishing her off now, but let's go for it. Yeah, that seems about right. That really worked out for us. Alright, let's see if we can wrap this up.
Continue the onslaught. Destroy them all.
Let's keep stacking.
A time to perform beyond one's limits. The slow death. Unforeseen. Unforgiving.
Okay, let's toss out some heals.
The wounds of war can be healed, but never hidden. Be wary. Triumphant pride precipitates a dizzying fall.
Yeah, I think we can live without that. We might grab one if we see it on sale at the Nomad's Wagon. Halfway through already. Oh, and there's our first real fight. Let's start stacking dodge again.
A singular strike.
Yeah, we've got this.
A death by inches.
Nicely done.
Seize this momentum. Push on to the task's end.
Okay, we really need to clear up more space here.
Gathered close in tenuous firelight. An uneasy companionship.
What, are you trying to say this pack of weirdos can't be friends? They don't need your judgment, narrator. Now let's see here. Not a lot to work with here. Guess we could take our chances with Trinket Scrounge. Interesting. And 1 point left. Alright, I think that's good enough. Get some rest, heroes.
In Radiance, may we find victory.
Okay, like I said, I was always planning for this to turn into a dark run. Might as well ditch our torches now, free up some space, and increase the quality of the loot.
Secrets and wonders can be found in the most tenebrous corners of this place.
Not bad. We'll have to make room for those busts, though. And that blood, I suppose. Moving on. Nice. We've got a barrier ahead, but otherwise it's just a few more fights. Oh, can't spare any more shovels right now. We might come back for that, though. Not having much luck with these curio. And there goes most of our remaining food. Go for the kill. And we're pretty much done.
Remind yourself that overconfidence is a slow and insidious killer.
I know. I really don't have to keep reminding myself. Well, let's go ahead and dump that trinket. It's just a common, so we can buy those for pretty cheap. Nice. Let's keep moving. We've got a treasure room at the end of the hall. Yeah, guess we'd better go for the caster first. Nice. That'll do it. Need to patch up Nightmare.
The wounds of war can be healed, but never hidden.
Okay, that buys us more time for healing.
Compassion is a rarity in the fevered pitch of battle.
Lovely.
Foolish horrors, brought low and driven into the mud.
I guess we can get rid of the dog traits. I was mostly just holding on to them in case we ran into a giant clam. Not bad. It could have been better, but it certainly could have been worse. Looks like we need one more space, though. Well, we can't afford to drop any of these supplies just yet. I guess we'll have to live without that journal page. We'll try to pick it up next time. Okay, final stretch. I think we can live without the jade. Oh, now I'm really glad I didn't dump any more food. There goes our last shovel. Alright, nothing we can't handle here. That doesn't actually change our strategy much. I think we're fine where we are. And we're done.
As victories mount, so too will resistance.
Not bad. Not bad at all. Guess we can finally dump these supplies. Yeah, the only thing left at this point is that barnacle chest out in the hall. And we'll definitely take those dice. That's actually pretty decent for a common trinket. Now let's just get this stuff in order real quick. Alright, let's go grab that barnacle chest, and I think we're done here. Oh, looks like we've got a bonus fight. Nice.
A powerful blow. Destroyed.
Just in case. We really need to take this thing out before it explodes. Lovely. That'll do it.
This expedition at least promises success.
Always nice to get a little extra treasure at the end. Well, it was worth a shot. We gained a little extra stress, but otherwise, no harm done.
At last, wholesome marine life can flourish. If indeed there is such a thing.
Fantastic. 25,000 gold, a veritable boatload of heirlooms, and a dark bracer for our inevitable dark runs. All things considered, not a bad day. And it looks like our secondary goal was successful too. 3 level ups. We also got a couple of halfway decent quirks, though we could have certainly lived without Warren's phobe. Fortunately, that one's easy enough to deal with. Alright, like I said, this was a pretty good day. Very profitable, especially for a novice dungeon. Anyway, I think that brings us to a pretty good stopping point for the episode. We'll hit the pause button for now, but we'll pick up here next time, as we take another look at the horrible gallery of boss monsters that are awaiting our attention. See you then.